Hello, this is Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I want to welcome you to video 3 of a series. This is the third and final video in the Deep Conversation series that I've started with Juan of Bookish Islander. We are, in essence, having a really in-depth conversation about a single book, and in this case, it is The Topeka School by Ben Lerner. And in this series, I started with video 1. I provided kind of some context and some basic understanding of things like the plot, the themes, the structure, the characters, the style. Then I asked Juan a few very specific questions about the book. At that point, on his channel, he filmed and posted video 2. And in that video, he answered my questions, provided his point of view on the and his verdict on the book, so to speak, and then sent some questions back to me. So in this video, this is the third, what we're doing is really looking at his questions, and then I'll provide my verdict on what I thought about The Topeka School by Ben Lerner. So, a couple caveats. It won't make a lot of sense if you haven't seen videos 1 and 2. I will say that. The second thing I'll say is, spoiler alert abound. I mean, just consider this entire series a spoiler series, because we're having almost like book club conversations where we're going deep into what was the material and all of that. So, if you have no intention of ever reading any Ben Lerner or the Topeka School, feel free to watch it. If you are going to read it, I would suggest holding off because, as I said, you're going to get things spoiled. So do with that information as you will, and just consider yourself duly advised. Okay. So next up, wanted to let you know that we have a playlist on my channel, and then there's a playlist on Juan's channel where the previous videos are all linked. And so if you need to start from the beginning, feel free to go there, or I have the other videos in the show notes below. Okay, so with that housekeeping, let's get to it. So I'm going to jump first with Juan's questions to me. So Juan asked me, what did I think about Jane? As you remember, Jane is Adam's mother, and this is autofiction. And so it's a very interesting thing if you stop and really think about it. Ben Lerner is writing about his mother, who is a writer, went through this. This is autofiction. So he's basically writing her story as well, but from her point of view. And what I found so interesting is that I think Jane is the most successful character in the book. She is thoughtful, she's introspective, she's compassionate. She is trying to deal with an environment that is set against her. So she's a member of the Institute, which still believes in Freudian analysis of like anything that she says, she mentions, has the risk of being seen as penis envy. So she feels like she doesn't really have the ability to provide her own thoughts, and without getting this backlash that she's just jealous because she doesn't have a penis. Then she's got that she's dealing with. So that's kind of in her work life. In her home life, her husband is very passive. He just kind of goes with the flow. He doesn't seem fully fleshed out. He comes from a family of broken marriage and cheating and all of that. He just doesn't seem like the most stable character or the most supportive character. I think what he says and what he does are two different things. She's got a son who's wicked smart, but also very going through rebellion, but his rebellion's very sneaky. He knows the right things to say, but doesn't mean he's doing the right things, and he's working the system. She has a best friend who, because of the way it works at this crazy institute, she's expected to allow her best friend, Seema, also working at the institute, to be her therapist, thereby warping their partnership and their relationship and creating strangeness there, which only gets exacerbated when she writes a book that becomes like a bestseller. So she's like, the lady can't win. She can't, what the hell, you know? And she also has Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church picketing all of her visits and all of her speaking engagements because she's a rabid feminist. So I feel for Jane. I think she's real. I think it is strange, the format, and I think it is strange and says a lot about how Ben Lerner himself thinks about his mother and the admiration he has for her in comparison with some of the other characters that have kind of point of view narratives through the story. The next question that he sent me was, given that the Topeka School is a sort of prequel to Lerner's previous two novels, those are 1004 and Leaving the Atocha Station, would you be interested in reading them? I think I'm good. I'm thinking good. I don't think I wasn't interested in reading those because I heard that they had such the protagonist, the main character, is just such an entitled ass that I just didn't feel like I wanted to read those. And I will say nothing that I read in this one will provide me any additional reasons to change my mind there. The next question he wrote is that public speaking is prominent in this novel. What do you think the way debating is discussed tells us about U.S. politics and public life? Okay, I think this part of the novel was so interesting and had so much to say about the seeds planted in the 90s that led us to the state that we're in today with our punditry, with our press, with our coverage, with the way we talk about politics and the way people engage in politics. So it seemed like a strange way to kind of go so deep into like this very niche world of debate and debating classes and debating competitions. But now I see why Ben Lerner did this. At the time when he is in high school, when the Adam character is in high school, there is a shift in the way that debate competitions are held. It used to be that debate was about the merits of the idea and about, could you convince someone? Is this can you make a case based on fact, based on evidence, based on research that your argument is valid? But what ended up happening is there started to be this new thing called the spread. And the spread is kind of like this auctioneer style, super fast way of throwing out all of these points. And the way you win is if the competitor that goes next is unable to match all of the points with responses. So it becomes a technicality less than it is about a conversation about the ideas presented and the ability to craft a compelling argument with facts. So you see where I'm going with this? You see how it started, where we are today, right? So if you think about, this is the 90s, and so the people who were in school in the 90s are now people who are in their 40s and who are actually in places of prominence in our media, in our government, in our press. You see how something like this could really spread. This also has a feel of a troll. And how trolls just attack, and it doesn't matter. And this is something that comes out. It really doesn't matter if the facts are true. It doesn't matter if the concepts are valid. What matters is, were you able to put out so many ideas and so many so many points that they aren't able to address them in enough time to make their win. So I think it absolutely, you can see how this has had a crazy impact. And not to say that there are a lot of people in debate. I don't know anybody who was in a debate club in my school that I went to high school with, but that doesn't mean that a debate club didn't exist. And more importantly, these people went on to be the public speakers and the pundits, and this style ended up being pervasive and insidious, and has moved forward in our culture. So it was shocking to read that. I think it was a very, very interesting and probably the most salient piece of ideas that were listed in this book, or identified in this book. Next, Adam can be seen as an example of toxic masculinity. Do you agree with that? And if so, do you think that he is a redeemable character? Such a good question. I think any character any person is redeemable. And if that holds true in real life, then in fiction, any character should be redeemable. But we're dealing with autofiction here. And I do think that he embodies toxic masculinity in the sense that what I took away from the Adam character is that how he's learned how to be in a way that gets him what he wants, but who he wants to be at the core is very different. So he wants to be a poet. What he really likes to do is rap. He's gotten excited by rap as a means of poetry. He really wants to explore that side of him and the poetry side, but the culture doesn't allow, and it's not rewarded. Guess what's rewarded? This debate thing is rewarded. That's getting him a lot of attention. It's getting him the accolades and all of that. It even helps him when he has arguments with his mother about what it is that he wants to do and certain things like that. So he's leveraging tools that, even though that's not what he wants, to get even further down a path that he doesn't want. But he does it because he benefits from it. I think that the character lacks significant empathy. He, as most teenagers are, he's incredibly self-centered. He's incredibly narcissistic. The scene opens with he's on a boat drunk with his girlfriend, and he's just like having this big, long diatribe and just basically having a monologue, which she has to sit there and endure. And he turns around because he hasn't heard from her, turns around, and she's literally jumped off the boat and swam home rather than sit and listen to his diatribes. Come on. That's somebody who is incredibly in their own world and self aggrandizing and self-centered. So while I think we are supposed to say, so at the very last chapters, again, spoilers, at the very last chapters, what we have is Adam fast forward into the future, and he is now the father of two little girls. He has a wife who's an activist who seems very strong-willed and very interesting, really, really interesting character, thoughtful, smart, full-throated feminist, and they are there to protest ICE. They are in a federal building. They're about to protest ICE, and they have the girls with them. What I took away is that he is on a trajectory, but he is not yet there. He has not conquered toxic masculinity. There's a scene where he talks about being at a playground, and a child was being mean to his child, and the father of the mean child didn't want to do anything about it and was like, "Not my problem." And he felt the need to protect his daughter, and he had to kind of think about what he was going to do, and he resorts to basically punching the guy out after trying to think about what should he do. The end result is he went to this violent means. What I find is it's that thing that always gets under my craw, and it's that thing. Now that I'm a father of girls, I want to do better. As if women who exist in the world as your peers, as your friends, as your lovers, as your confidants, as your partners we don't exist until you recreate yourself through your offspring. It's bullshit. And so I definitely felt that continuation of that vibe there, that he's woke enough. Again, he understands what he should be doing, but what he does is different. So as reflected in the arc of what's happened, I don't think he's been is he redeemable? Yes. Has he been redeemed in this collection? I don't think so. Next up is, what's your overall verdict? Okay. So my final thoughts of the book. There were some very interesting things. I think this is one of those that is a book of big ideas, and it's a book that has aspirations for things. And one of the questions I asked Juan was, if a book is a critical darling, does that make you think differently about your approach or or how you rate it? And his answer was no. It may put it on my radar, but it doesn't change how I rate. He's a better man than I am because it absolutely changes how I think about things. I will hold it to a higher standard, because if it's all of a sudden getting all of this acclaim, appearing on all of these lists, it's the best. I read a significant amount, and so I therefore have higher expectations than if I just on my own reached for this. Now, I don't read reviews until after I've completely finished a book. That is, it's not something that I do. I like to form my own opinion, but like Juan, it puts it on my radar of something that could be interesting, that is in the conversation, in the bookish conversation, in the literary world, so to speak. So I had very, very high hopes. I think that this, because it's a book of ideas told through this weird autofiction lens, I think that he was really hamstrung in what he was trying to do, because he had to bring in the truth of all of these people. I would have, and I don't often do this because I don't think it's my job to say the book should have been like this. I don't think that's true. But in this case, I think this could have been a more compelling conversation if he had abstracted and in a true abstracted way, like taken the foundation, the skeleton, and played with it more. Because there are things in here that just didn't belong or didn't make sense in my opinion. There's all this backstory of the father. Didn't really propel any of the themes any further along. There's a whole, Juan talked about the soap opera-ish nature of a potential romantic relationship between Seema, her best friend, and her husband. Again, didn't really propel any of the themes through. And so I felt like he had to put them in because they happened, less than it was something that was in service to the story itself. I think the things that were really, the ideas at play were interesting, but it was the execution that failed me. I think the time and place was so crystal clear. Like, I literally could see it. I could see the 90s. I could smell the perfume of the 90s. I could hear the conversations, the music, all of that did allow you to kind of be like, oh, right, this is we're not in today. This is a different recent past, but it was a past. Really great. The writing is strong, it's really strong. But fundamentally, I think that the framework that he used and the structure didn't help us get to the themes in a way that I think could have added more value. And we open with Darren character, and Darren, I think, is probably the most misused character in the entire book, because he is an outsider who has just enough tentacles into the group and of characters to just be annoying but not offer really any empathy. And so I found his storyline anticlimactic. It felt interruptive every single time it hit. And I see how it shows Adam lacking in compassion. But the way it was told, it really kind of, every single time I hit it, it pulled me out and made me question why we were reading this. And I still think that he doesn't give Darren the empathy at the end. At the end, Darren is a member of the Westboro Baptist Church, and he is standing in a picket line. And while that may be interesting, that this is where the character ended, I don't know that it helped the story. So those are my thoughts. So like you, the book didn't work for me. I think that there were a lot of ideas, there was a lot of potential. But for me, it wasn't as direct as I would have liked to the themes. And I just don't like that main character. He's just an ass. But I know that there are people out there that differ. And Juan and I would love to know, what did you see in this? How did you think about it? Did any of the points that I make register? Do you see that as a counterpoint? And let's have a conversation. And again, let's keep it polite and respectful. No, there is no right way to read a book. We all come to it with our full selves, and this is what makes reading interesting, is the dialogue and the conversation. So we don't expect to change each other's minds, but to see into each other's perspectives. So with that, I will leave you and just say thank you for joining us for this. And we will have our next series will be in February, where we will bring up have a new book, very different from this one. So please be on the lookout for that. Juan will kick that one off. So make sure to subscribe to his channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll look forward to talking to you later. Bye.